Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Augustine, and I'm a proud graduate of the class of 1999. Before I get started, a few disclaimers. I rarely speak in public and almost never on personal matters, and I tend to be a rather serious sort of fellow to the degree that I've been accused of lacking a sense of humor. And in the 7th grade, I hid my report cards from my parents for 6 months because I almost failed Miss Steele's English class. So you'll have to forgive any grammatical mistakes that I make. To say that an MBA education was beyond the reach of my family financially would be a drastic understatement. My father worked 2 jobs from the time he was married at age 19 until I was over 30 years old, and he started his workday at 2:30 a.m. My mother also worked 2 jobs, one job that paid at Overbrook School, where the generosity of the Dominican sisters allowed my 2 sisters and I to attend, and one job that didn't pay as the primary homemaker. As a child, I never thought MBA was an option for me. However, I was surrounded by many friends at Overbrook who were applying to MBA, and my parents encouraged me to apply. I did not expect to be accepted. I didn't consider myself to be very intelligent. I remember being interviewed by Miss Thurmond in her regal southern voice. I remember speaking with Miss Christensen, the Latin teacher, because I was an altar boy in the local Latin Mass at the time. I remember being overwhelmed by the size of MBA's campus and its buildings. My acceptance to MBA was bittersweet. My parents were in disbelief and extremely proud of me. And as proud as they were, the unspoken and underlying concern loomed as to whether I could even attend, despite my acceptance. We simply couldn't afford the tuition, even at a drastically reduced rate, and I tried not to get my hopes up. But when the financial aid package was finalized and MBA became a reality for me, I could hardly believe my good luck. Academically, I remember struggling mightily in the 7th and 8th grade. I almost failed English due to the volume of reading required, and I almost failed physical sciences. My parents, by the way they lived their lives on a daily basis, had given me a firm understanding of hard work, and for that I'm eternally grateful. But MBA required not just physical labor, but mental labor, and I was unaccustomed to such persistent mental work. Somewhere around my freshman year, I learned how to pace myself academically, and the workload became easier. I had a few more close calls with failures, such as Dr. Clark's physics class and Dr. Springer's Spanish class, but by the end of my sophomore year, I was a regular on the privilege list. One of the places I loved most on campus was the old study hall in the Wallace building. It was one of the places I felt most productive, and I spent a lot of time there. I studied a lot at home as well, and my younger sister told me a story recently that's worth sharing. As I'd study each night, I'd sit at the table that I had beneath the window in my bedroom, and I had a pocket knife, and I'd just kind of flick off pieces of the windowsill. Well, after I'd gone to college, my sister, who never went in my room, went into my room and was surprised to find that there was little of that windowsill left. Athletically, I focused on wrestling and football. I wasn't the biggest of boys, so wrestling was my stronger sport. I learned as much about myself on the wrestling mat and the football field as I did in the classroom. How to perform under pressure and fatigue, how to compete in pain, how to win, and more importantly, how to lose. Yet athletics were one of the few areas of my life where my financial aid status had an impact. As a wrestler, there was a time I couldn't participate on the varsity team even though I won the right to start due to my financial aid. Similarly, I remember being called out on the football field in a game that we were winning by 40 points or more, only to be embarrassingly called back to the sideline, and I couldn't play because of my financial aid status. A lot of feelings around those events I kept inside and tried not to show, and my parents constantly reminded me that my attendance at MBA was a tremendous gift and that I should focus on my education. And so I did, most of the time. In the end, as an upperclassman, I did get to participate at the varsity level on both the wrestling mat and the football field, and I cherish a lot of those great memories those endeavors provided me. On top of academic and athletic commitments, I worked a lot. I worked an 8-hour shift on Saturdays when I didn't have athletic practice at a hardware store in Green Hills as a cashier. I worked the 6 a.m. to noon shift on Sunday mornings at the Donut Den for a while. I mowed lawns. I caddied at Richland Country Club. I taught swim lessons at the Boys and Girls Club on Thompson Lane in the winter. During the summer, I was a lifeguard. My favorite shift as a lifeguard during the summer was the 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. because I could get to 40 hours in a week faster and start to get to overtime. My parents also worked as much as they could during those years to make the ends meet, and between the three of us, I was able to have enough money to keep gas in the car and have fun and stay at MBA. Looking back, I realized the tremendous amount of sustained commitment my education at MBA took from both my parents and me. I'm deeply grateful for those years of effort because they afforded me the opportunity to be immersed in the culture of excellence that defines MBA. And it's that culture of excellence that has had the most lasting impact on my life. I was fortunate to have an extremely gifted group of friends and classmates, and their successes after our graduation have been amazing. Some of the men have been Marines, Army Rangers, and Apache pilots. Some are professional athletes. Some are highly respected doctors and lawyers. Some have attended the most prestigious business schools in the country. Many are emerging business leaders, and all are good husbands and fathers, the most difficult achievement of all. Admission to MBA was like being thrown into a deep river. I learned how to swim with the current of excellence and not against it, and that current has been a force which pushed my life forward. Indeed, the current of MBA has touched every part of my life. I've had the pleasure of working at a company owned by an MBA alum, and I learned from him a lot what it means to have integrity in the business world. My business partner is an MBA alum, and we have a common bond and common expectations of hard work and commitment that are difficult to find. Some of the most significant capital partners of our business have a connection to MBA. One of my sisters married a fellow MBA graduate. He's one of the finest men I know. I met my wife due to the engagement party of one of my MBA classmates. I've come to have a degree of stability in my life, albeit modest, that is well beyond what I would have ever thought possible before entering MBA. From my experience, I can attest that the MBA education works to produce men capable of living lives of achievement across generations. But why? After some reflection, I'd like to give you my explanation of why MBA works. The MBA education works because in an increasing materialist world, MBA strives to educate men liberally. A quick point of clarification. I use the term liberal not in the modernist sense as almost a synonym for progressive, but in the classical sense, as worthy of a free man, separate and distinct from purely technical or professional or ministerial education. The MBA education is based upon educating young men as free men as a value in and of themselves, which is a reflection of that awesome power that created us. MBA works because it dares to put forth a noble ideal of what a man should be, and then it demands that its students strive towards that ideal. And what are the foundations of that ideal? To write, to think, and to speak. If not explicit, the ethos that underlies all the activities at MBA is to educate you to be a man that can write excellently, think excellently, and speak excellently, because you are a man, and as a man, it is right and proper and necessary for your success and the full manifestation of your humanity to be able to do so. Further, MBA holds out the motto of gentleman, scholar, and athlete. The term gentleman implies that you're a morally responsible being, another classical idea of an ethics, and it's formalized here in our honor code. The term scholar implies that you're an intellectually capable being, and that you can apply your mind to the problems of the world, another classical idea of logic. The term athlete implies that you're a man of action by nature, and the study of natures in classics was called physics. Being an athlete is synonymous with being an active participant in bringing order and clarity to the world. MBA holds out a logic, a physics, and an ethics, a coherent philosophy of what a man should be, a truly noble idea of man as a value in and of itself. And it is that strength through knowledge, fortitudo per scientiam, that defines the MBA education. Now I'd like to take a moment to speak about an unpopular topic today, and that's sacrifice. The personal sacrifices of myself and my family to attend MBA were met equally by the sacrifices of those who educated me here, as well as the generous alumni community who gave financially to make my attendance possible. Often both people inside and outside the MBA community look at the MBA campus or read about donations in the newspaper and feel free to criticize MBA. And I'm always confused by such comments. MBA is not an elitist institution. If it were, I wouldn't be standing here today. And cost without reference to value is meaningless. Attendance at MBA demands sacrifices from almost all families, but the value of what your son has the opportunity to obtain in actuality is far more valuable than any amount of dollars spent. Furthermore, people seem to make the mistake of confusing the stock for the flow, to use a business terminology. I would encourage you to keep firmly in mind that the stock of the physical beauty that surrounds us, no matter how impressive, is but a small portion of the overwhelming generosity that has flowed through and continues to flow through these walls. These beautiful halls of learning should serve as an outward reminder to all who know and love this school that MBA is first and foremost an institution of excellence and generosity. It is the flow of generosity, generosity of time, generosity of talent, and generosity of wealth that creates the culture of excellence that takes young boys and strives to transform them into classical, liberal, free, and noble men. My reflection on my time at MBA has made me even more aware of how truly life-changing my time at MBA was. To be placed on the path that instills the values that MBA embodies is a gift of inestimable value. For a long time, whether consciously or not, I was driven to prove to myself and everyone else that I deserved to be a part of this community of men. However, in speaking to you today, I must confess that my perspective is wrong. No amount of achievements I can make will ever merit the generosity that I was given. The gift is just too great. And in truth, none of the students who attend MBA are capable of meriting in their short time here the extraordinary opportunities that this school provides. I have to accept my time at MBA for what it was, and that was a gift. An MBA education is the gift of opportunity, and that opportunity is best placed in the hands of those who would make the most of it. It doesn't matter whether you go home to sleep at night in Belmead or Bellevue, in Brentwood or Bordeaux. MBA is the right place for you if you want what we have and you're willing to work for it. It's the responsibility of the alumni to support MBA so that it can continue to provide opportunities for those students, like myself, who found themselves on the periphery of MBA's traditional student population. By pulling these students into MBA, MBA reaps the benefits of those alumni pulling MBA into their communities, thereby exposing an even greater number of promising young men to the gifts MBA has to offer. The very opportunity to speak to you today has been another tremendous gift MBA has given me. I would like to especially thank Headmaster Joya for inviting me to address you today. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all those who played a role in granting me admission to MBA, to educating and coaching me while I was here, to providing the funds necessary for me to go to school here for 6 years. MBA altered the course of my life in ways I would never have expected, and I'm grateful for it. I'm proud to be a part of this school, this community of men that strive to perpetuate that noble idea of what a man can and should be. And I will continue to support the good works of this institution that gives as only an alma mater or loving mother can give, the institution we know as Montgomery Bell Academy. Thank you, and roll red.